lifetime. And so it's a layer in the whole, and I'm just picking up a little bit of where you've been. And I regret I couldn't or didn't join for the rest. I'm afraid I don't spend a lot of time on Zoom. It's not all that compatible with my being, but I'm grateful we can be here together. I have this, you may see this space that I have that has certain conditions. Each of you is in a space that has certain conditions that will allow you to move in certain ways. And so the focus here will be in exploring within our bodies, within our space. And that'll look different for each of us because our bodies are different and because our spaces are different and our experiences in our bodies are different. A somatic perspective, somatics as a field, investigates the experience of having and being a body, of movement and awareness. So a somatic perspective is it has input and output, and the input is your awareness, your sensations, your perception, and the output is your movement, and they affect each other. They're always in relationship with each other, because even speaking is movement, even looking is movement. There's very little that isn't. Our ecosystems, from this larger point of view, are the arrangement, the ways in which living systems are co-creating together. And so within our bodies, we have that. Within this Zoom chat, we are all participants. And while I'm the one speaking, any one of us has an effect on the whole. So there is an operational consensus that we co-create. And so we're going to do that in movement. And I don't want to talk too much to get started. I did want to just speak a little bit to the agreements that I hold in BraveSpace. And I wonder, I might even be able to share this on my screen. Pages unknown, interesting. Zoom. Sorry, I've got some system level problems on my computer. Just gonna see if I can fit that. Nope, that's not gonna work. Okay, I'm not gonna be able to share screen. That's fine. I'll just read these and try to speak to them. If you have, I suppose I'll just read them. So what is BraveSpace? BraveSpace is, in my way of using it, an embodied and co-creative social dynamic that fosters individual sovereignty within group consensus. So to break that down, the brave spaces that I hold, but really physical space and the interrelational physical space we're even holding in this virtual world, it's embodied. We can't, we have no way out of these bodies in a lifetime. And so acknowledging that, and that we have a relationship to physical space, and that we share that physical space, has ramifications for our experience. And so it can be really scary and dangerous to show up in space. We can literally be killed. We can literally get injured showing up in the real physical world in which we find ourselves in these bodies. And ultimately, one of the hardest points is this piece that, like, we're all mortal. Like, each of us is going to die. It's unavoidable. So the bravery comes in how we handle this, I think. And it's, to some degree, the basis of every spiritual tradition. What do we do with death? So, so as soon as we come into the body with a sense of willingness to face our mortality, that's brave in my view. and it's a social engagement to do that. Co-creative, because it's not top down, that when we come into community, we are holding space for each other, and we can have a top-down structure, but even within that, we have to be able to hold space together in some form. Brave space, as I like to hold it, with embodiment, with dance, with movement, there's the sensibility that we each choose that. We're each willing to be in this state with each other. And as a social dynamic, then we're fostering our sovereignty, our wholeness, that I am whole within this body, which is a community of my organs, my bacteria, my thoughts, my experiences, and within the group consensus. And that group consensus is a field of consciousness. And sometimes the agreements are very literal. I will not spit on my neighbor during class, or and sometimes those things we decide on actually aren't outlined exactly. We just sort of know. And I would say there's more of that than the ones that are spelled out. We're ingenious beings at matching the collective. We're so social. So I'll just read the definition again. Brave space is an embodied and co-creative social dynamic that fosters individual sovereignty within group consensus. So there's this ability to hold both states of consciousness at once. I am part of the communal, and I am whole within myself. And so there's this both and. To hold this space together, there's 4 agreements that I typically ask for. We agree to confidentiality. So Brave Space, which I hold, here in the studio, I hold live most of the time. I've done some of them online, especially during the midst of COVID. But I would ask that during the session together, if you see someone, doing something with their body that to you brings something on, you're like, that's weird, then you don't leave the session and be like, well, this person in Brave Space did this motion that was so weird. Instead, you might try it in your body and go like, what is it about this? And then you might say to a friend, I'm weirded out by this movement. How is it for you? So it takes ownership. It brings it into the self and brings it into the experience, and then can share from there, rather than, oh, it's that weird thing happened, or something someone shares in their words. I think we're all probably pretty familiar with confidentiality. I'm going to guess we've all sat in community circles and so on. I mean, that's kind of what this is. So number 2, we agree to take responsibility for our own boundaries in movement, touch, and overall participation. Obviously, we're not going to be able to touch each other because we're online. If we were in person, it becomes a very real piece to be dealing with touch and how we reposition ourselves with each other. Our consent language in culture these days tends to treat consent as something that comes at us, right? Here's this thing coming at you, how do you respond? And yet the reality of working with consent in our lives with each other is much more multi-directional than that. So there's the repositioning. Let's say I didn't really like you looking at the right side of my face for some reason. I might choose to be here, or a number of you have chosen to be off camera, which actually may be a bandwidth thing as I understand it. But you could decide that you don't want to be seen and witnessed right now. You just want to move in your own space, and you could turn your camera off or go off the camera, like that. And this is a more comfortable way to be seen. So working with our boundaries that way is a choice of where we be, of how we position ourselves in each moment. So we agree to take responsibility for our own boundaries. We practice the ability to say no, and we practice repositioning ourselves physically or socially, in order to uphold the boundaries we desire. Number 3, we agree not to control others or otherwise force them to move, touch, or speak in a way we may prefer. We do not chase or grasp others, even if we think it's for their own gain. And this one's hard. And it comes from contact improvisation. So in contact improvisation, it's a form where you're moving with someone and there's no set movements, and you just meet the other, and then you don't know what's going to happen because it's unpredictable. It's an improvisation, and they're not going to move the same way you move, and they're not going to know have the same choice. So we get to really listen to each other. And as soon as we grasp someone and try to move them, even if we think like, oh, they're going to love this, well, then they can no longer take responsibility for their own boundaries as easily. And someone can get hurt physically much more easily if we start grasping. There are moments where grasping happens, but we're always ready to let go and kind of checking in constantly with the letting go. When you don't need to grasp, why do it? You know, we don't in contact improv actually pick people up. We more like get under them and they lean on us. So it's a co-created experience. And so the non-grasping, you know, this has tremendous roots in Buddhism. So what is it when we agree not to control others? And I would fathom to say there's a lot of attempting to control others right now on Facebook, in a lot of things going on. There's this call out culture has roots in that. And it comes from an intention of wanting to support each other. So even if we think it's for their gain, how do we choose to be the consciousness or be the change that we're wanting to embody, be the movement, rather than like controlling this other person saying, well, you need to move like me. It's challenging. Number 4, we agree to trust others to take care of themselves. To do otherwise would be in violation of agreement 3. So to do otherwise is in essence control. We can graciously offer assistance to others and find out if it's accepted. We agree to trust others to take care of themselves. So those are some bold agreements. And they allow for risk-taking. They allow for a space, and I'm not going to go through the principles. You can find them on my website at soma.works. But the principles include, one of the principles is we're willing to be uncomfortable. And so that's a place that may be necessary in order to uphold some of these agreements. You may not agree with the agreements. And I won't try to control you to say you absolutely would have to follow them here, but I offer them up as a way to work. So confidentiality, taking responsibility for our own boundaries, not controlling others, and trusting others to take care of themselves. So within that, I would love to bring us into some motion. I just want to look at my description here and make sure I contextualize it all well for you. The piece about trauma, it seems important to say a little bit about that. Trauma is ubiquitous. We need it. We have to have trauma. If we don't, we'll find it. We all have our wounds. And sometimes I think we live in a culture that says, you know, nobody can be traumatized, nobody can get sick, nobody can die. Trauma is going to happen. We will find it. And it's, you know, a teacher of mine says, you know, if you don't deliver the trauma to your child that they need, the world will do it for you and won't be nearly as gentle. And that's been fascinating to parent from that point of view and be like, oh, right, I'm gonna screw my kid up. It's part of the job. So we all have our trauma, and trauma doesn't have to have this big capital T. It doesn't have to be sexual abuse. It doesn't have to be, I got hit by a car, but it may be any of those things. It may be so horrible we can barely speak about it. And it may pattern everything we do. And then we have the opportunity when we engage with feeling to come up and make a choice about how we deal with each moment. And there's trauma sensitivity and some brilliant things happening right now to help us find way through trauma. And I'm going to say it's still a decision to show up to feeling in the moment. That's unavoidable, that we have to be able to show up and say, I can feel this moment. So what we'll be doing here is looking at some fundamentals that make that possible in our bodies. And I'd also like to fathom to say that we don't create our traumas alone, nor do we solve them alone. That traumas happen in relationship with our world, with each other. And so it is a communal experience to both receive and be able to heal trauma. And what I've seen in moving with people, and I throw ecstatic dance on a regular basis. Ecstatic dance is a space with music playing, but there's a sense of consensus reality of what the agreements are, of what the spaces we're creating, holding together. And that seems to allow us to get through trauma. I hear that regularly, like, I can be myself here. I show up, I was so scared, and now I realize, like, it's beautiful. It's amazing what happens in that kind of a space. So I'd like to offer a bit of that space here. And before we go any further, I'm wondering, well, I'd like to take you away from your screen for a moment. And then I'd like to come back to the screen and be able to see each other. So if you're willing, if it's within the boundaries that feel right for you, if you're able to turn on your video here, that would be awesome. And so we're going to leave our screen for a minute. I'll turn on some music. I'll guide you a little bit to just come into your bodies. And so it'll be a little movement meditation. And then we'll come back and be able to see each other. And then we'll be working with some witnessing. So that's a little blueprint of where we're going. So if you're able to turn on your cameras, that would be awesome. And now I'm going to try the share screen to get my music. Hopefully that'll work. Okay. Let's check, sound check here. Getting a little random rab there. Hopefully, I've lost you all. Where are you? There we go. Raise your hand. Yeah, you got music. Beautiful. Level's always a little funny to figure out here. So if you have a floor space, and some of you probably do, and most of you probably don't, I encourage you to come down onto the floor. In the process of doing that, and whether or not you have a floor space, I'd like to invite you to take a look around. Adventure into this physical space in which you're in, and notice how you can use your physical body to do it. It does not need to be profound. Just journey a little bit. Take a journey around your space. Imagine that you've never seen it before, and let the light, as it bounces off of the space, fall into the back of your eye. Imagine you could let the light work its way down through the back of your eyes into your skull and down into your spine. Notice your breath. Breath comes in and breath goes out. Expanding and condensing. Letting the light come in. And imagining, if you like, that it could travel down your spine. As if you were a way for the earth to see herself. The light could travel all the way through your feet and into the earth. And then if there's a space where you can easily and comfortably come down to the ground, then do so. If there's not, don't worry about it. Anything you could lean on, any surface in which you could move that might get you off your feet, and particularly on the parts of your body you're not always putting your weight on. You know, we're typically putting our weight on our feet or our butt. So are there other ways to be in your space? Can you lay across a couch or kneel over a chair? Get sensation on parts of your body other than your feet and your butt. Feel your connection to the world. And as much as is possible, and especially if you're on the ground, yield and soften. Allow yourself to be supported. So in permaculture, we talk about obtain a yield, get something for the work you've done. Soften, yield into the support of the earth. You are supported. Fundamentally true, you are supported. Gravity draws you to the center of the earth pushes back. Provable through your experience in your body. This is not an affirmation. This is an experiment. I am supported. How do I notice that I'm supported? Breath comes in, goes out. And then maybe allow your eyes to close. Can you drink in the sensation of where you're meeting the world, where you're touching the world? And then can you move and allow this contact with the earth to shift? Maybe you are standing. Maybe you simply shift your weight from one foot to the other. Maybe you're rolling on the floor. Maybe you're just turning left and right, sitting on a couch. Whatever your situation is, can you feel your contact with the world? Your edge. Using edges. Value your edges. Margin. Value the edge where the ecosystem of your body meets the environment around you. The edge is a place of much change, much of interest. So notice the sensations that happen here. Move in the sensation that's available. When we talk about something being sensual, what do we mean? Come into your senses. And moving can help you do this. But there may be moments where for you, being quite still or close to still brings in sensation. So play with both, moving, stillness. It need not be profound. It can be quite simple. Just feeling. Well, where do I meet the environment? And I feel my breath. Notice the difference, eyes open or eyes closed. Our eyes can often draw us into a different reality than when we let them close. So from the place of closed eyes, we may be able to drop into a more sensual experience and then bring that with even in opening the eyes, allowing the light to pour into the back of the eye. Not reaching for the world to be any particular way, but just sensing it as it is. I invite you to let your hands open. Allow your palms to open. And then allow your hands to come somewhere on your torso, on your body, with the sense that they're holding something sacred. Little piece of the divine, the mystery. Notice what it feels like to have these hands holding you. What do they help you feel? And also notice what do you feel under the hand? Be the hands touching and be the body touch. Notice that these are two different perspectives held within one human being. You are both of you at the same time. The one who is touched and the one who is touching. Notice your thoughts, ideas, emotions, and sensations, just as they are. Just notice them. You're doing it right. You may be exactly where you think you'd be, where you may not. And that's fine. There's nothing that needs to be accomplished. So you can just notice the energy that's here, the sensory experience of being your body. And then as you're able, bring yourself on back to the screen. See if you can keep a sense of allowing light to fall in. And let's see each other. Those of us who can, whose cameras are there. Find my music. Turn it on. Okay. So let's see each other. And you can kind of, as a mantra, keep coming back to allowing the light in, allowing it to pour through you. And then see around people and see the space that they're in. And so one of the bits of magic to this Zoom experience is that we're combining our spaces. And see if you can let maybe your heart field, however you bring yourself into an awareness of space. I often do it from my heart field. A sense that these spaces are all in the same planet. That these spaces really exist together. It's not just a play of our technology or of our mind. In fact, we don't even need this technology. It offers something. It's beautiful to have it. But we are doing this even without the technology. Close your eyes and feel for the group. And we're there. So feel for the group 360 degrees around you. Feel the continuity of space. And then within that continuity of space, see each other again. Here we are. And so I would love to have some conversation, and I don't want to get stuck here. Here's how I'd like to bring us forward. There's a practice I call I'll dance your story. And so oftentimes, like in authentic movement, there's a form authentic movement where we might watch someone move, and then there's a story that comes up for me as I watch someone move. So I'm watching a mover. And then I'll even speak in the first person present tense. I am moving with my hand over my heart, and I come forward and back. And with each oscillation, I'm more present. That's an experience I'm having. So we can pick up on people's experiences and make meaning in our own way. We can also reverse the process. So we can take in an experience, a story, and then move that story. And then it is a way that I am reflecting back and having an experience of what someone's spoken to. And it doesn't need to look like their story. It just may be their story in ourselves, right? It becomes my story. So what I'd like to do is open up to the possibility of hearing some stories of what you're feeling in your body now, of what is coming up for you. And then we'll move that perhaps as a group, anyone who would want to. Now, another thing I'd like to speak to, and I'm covering a lot quickly here, but witnessing is at the center of this, right? If we all witness each other and see each other, that brings the power of the collective healing. It brings the power of the collective consciousness. And it can be just two people. It doesn't need to be the group. There's a group as soon as there's two people, and a dyad witnessing begins. So it's the basis of being able to find the story between us, is to witness, to take in each other, to have this experience with another. So if we could get just, if anyone has a story they'd like to share, I'd love to keep it pretty brief so that we can get back to moving too. But I'd like to open the space if there's a story or two or three that could be shared. And you know, if these stories were 1 to 2 minutes, that would probably be the ideal. What are you feeling in your body? What's coming up as you're moving?
I could say that I missed the contact. And as I was moving, I noticed energetically we were all together. And I just wish I could see you all and give you hugs. And so I'm definitely feeling a lot of grief, and I'm very grateful that I'm able to connect to it and move it and not have it be inside me anymore. I'm grateful for the space and for the community and to feel all of you. And I hope we make it through it. It feels good to move. Yeah.
Yeah, Mark, I echo that. Dance has been so healing for me in a part of my life, and I'm crying too, thinking in this time. And just thank you, Matthew, for opening up this tender space. Dance is reminding me of that need for connection, but also reminding me of my sovereignty. Dance taught me that. Part of the 4 agreements and dancing with other people, especially in contact and like partners fusion, I learned how to trust my desire to say yes and to no, and to gracefully connect or disconnect from people, and that it was all right to trust that and to respond. And that was on me. It wasn't on someone else to know what I was okay with. It was on me to just be like, I'm good, I'm not good, and to take care of myself. And so thank you for reminding me of my sovereignty in the world.
Mm-hmm. I think of sovereignty as wholeness.
I'd like to echo that also. For probably the first 50 years of my life, I thought that my body was there to carry my head around, and the head was the only thing that mattered. My brain, my intellect. And it was through soul motion dance, which is one of the ecstatic dances, which grew out of the Gabriel Roth 5 Waves, which I've also done some, that I dropped into my body. And then through my women's spiritual group, which also has an annual dance. And this year we did that online. We did that virtually in July, which was, yeah, Marlene was there. She's one of my spiritual sisters. And that was incredible. It was edgy. I mean, it was like, because I had to do my long dance by myself, connecting, and virtually, and it was like pushing those boundaries. And dance also, Shaylee, taught me how to say no. To be able to, if someone wanted to come up and dance with me in group and I didn't want to, I could turn away and they wouldn't take offense, and that no one would come and rescue me if I started to cry. They would stand and witness. And if I wanted to be held at that point and wanted to cry with someone, I could. But if I wanted to just weep by myself, they didn't come over and hug me. I had to ask, and learning to ask was huge, right? It's like, oh, I'm standing here in pain and nobody's coming over to comfort me. Why not? Because I haven't asked for it. And so those are the lessons that dance has taught me. And it was so beautiful, even getting down on my dirty carpet here, was beautiful to have the music. I know there were others moving to that same music. I loved it. Thank you, Matthew.
My pleasure.
Wish you weren't in Boise.
Well, come visit me. Visit me. I'll talk more about that. I have this retreat center here, so.
No, gotta do it online for a while.
Sure.
It's so nice to have you getting us out of our brains. We've been sitting on our butts and using our brains and our voices all weekend. It's really, really, I appreciate that. I'm actually going to leave in a couple of hours to go do an online dance. Oh, like half an hour, for exactly that same reason. It's because I want more of this, and you gave me this little taste of it and reminded me, oh, I want that. So yeah, I'm going to go do that.
Well, let's come back to it. I want to just kind of speak to what I've heard for the collective, which is, I heard from Marley this piece of the sadness of being so separate, of this time where it hasn't been possible to get together, of missing contact, and of the joy of even being able to feel it with the environment. I heard Shaylee speak to sovereignty and this ability to navigate edges and meeting the edges of others. And I heard Patricia also speak to that. And Sylvan, you also reflected this joy that can be in the motion with each other. How we make meaning of that in our own body is up to us individually, right? This is the verbal heady part, and now we get to come back into sensing. So take a moment and just sense into the resonance of what you've heard, and notice where it resonates in your body. Maybe you've never danced, and so you don't know where it resonates. I had the odd experience of that just landing in my testicles just now. Like, it may resonate in an unexpected place. And then I'm going to start music again. And what I'd like is for us to always have at least 5 witnesses, given the numbers. So that means I can see right now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I can see 13 people right now. Everyone else has their camera off. So of those people, the maximum number to be moving at any moment would be what, 8 or something like that. Wow, math is completely unavailable to me right now. I'm not going to take time to figure it out. But that we have always at least 5 witnesses, because the witnesses give power to our motion, to allow ourselves to be seen. And they're also the thing that make us nervous to do it, right? I mean, I bet at least half of you are kind of nervous about, like, what are they going to see? And that's perfect. It's perfect. So the job of the witnesses is to witness, to take it in, to, you know, as it gets put in many a church, can I have a witness? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So we'll go for a little bit and just take this story and let the stories that you've heard move through you however they move through. And always 5 witnesses. We'll go, I don't know how long we'll go for on this. Feel it out. I'm gonna find the music. You have music, is it playing? Beautiful. Okay, so we see each other, we see each other's space. And when you feel moved or you make the decision to get up and move, you can move and be witness. And in service to exploring the stories we've already heard. So we're moving these stories. In service, moving in service. You may be witnessing something that draws you in so that you choose to move what you feel as you watch. Move into moving, and then you may may move for a little bit and come back into witnessing. For the sake of this experience, you might not so much move and witness at the same moment because the screen is a poor portal for that. But, you know, if it comes up for you, go ahead. Whew. Bring it on back. Just come to presence, let it resonate through. Feel the collective field. And then Take a moment and feel inside your own body, the collective within the body, the organs, muscles, nerves, nervous system, bones, water. The magic by which it's all animated. And just check in what coherence is there between your body and the collective. Maybe blocks as well, that's fine. What do you notice here? And let's open that up. What do you notice here? Is there anything that wants to be shared?
The thing that comes to my mind is something I heard many years ago. It's when I was doing African dance from Zimbabwe, and it was, "Come to the village well, it's where the water is." And the moment I heard that, it's like I could not hear that without a lump in my throat. It was that powerful.
Come to the village well, it's where the water is. Yeah. There's a way that I think about what we're doing as, and what it brings up for me is that it's that elemental. That there's this sense that we need to know how to dance. And of course, I've studied it for, more than half my life, and I have all sorts of ways that I know how to dance. But what's elemental is not the how. It's like we all have just the ability to move and feel. That's enough. And there's all these layers where we try to make it a certain way. Sometimes. But it's like, it's just enough to move and feel. But sometimes it doesn't feel like much, too. Not always profound. It's like a glass of water. Sometimes it's just so good. And sometimes it's like, yeah, I drink water. Keeps me alive.
Yeah, I've just really missed dance, and it's actually been missing from my life for, gosh, close to 2 years, I guess, when the dance studio where I used to live shut down. And then we got caught up in the move and coming to this remote rural area. I don't know where the dance is, and this was, and plus COVID, so this was really surprising and amazing that I felt a sense of joining with everybody, and feeling a sense of being witnessed and witnessing others, and that sense of community it's just really amazing to find that with others in movement. So I really appreciate you holding this space, Matthew. I did have to take a break from it, but I'm glad to have caught part of it. Thank you.
Yeah, oh, you're welcome. What is it about witnessing? What's your experience of witnessing here? Of being witnessed?
I noticed the community I felt inside my body and how everything had its role. And then outside of my body, the energetics of being with all of you and witnessing you, I had found my role in how we all interconnect outside of ourselves in relationship and community with others, and the community within.
Mm-hmm. Someone I haven't been very tuned into the chat there, and sorry for all of you who are writing such beautiful things if I'm not bringing them in well. But there was one thing I saw there, which was vulnerability. And it feels like it's become almost a buzzword, right? It's this, oh, vulnerability. And like, what is it about vulnerability? It's getting back to this piece that, like, we're all going to die. In fact, there's no such thing as even saving a life. Like, we talk about saving lives, it doesn't even exist. We're all going to pass. So we are vulnerable. It's like, what happens when we acknowledge it? It's the acknowledgement of the vulnerability that's already inherent. There's no way to get out of it. None of us is getting out of this alive. And so there's that. That's why I believe in this so much. I want to just speak briefly again to an ecosomatic perspective. Why is this permaculture? It's permaculture because we are living systems. It's permaculture because in coming into our bodies, we recognize and respect the body's inherent intelligence through the language of movement and awareness, the languages of sensation and movement. So we recognize the body as nature then, and have the opportunity to channel that through, rather than just to be in control of it or trying to get something from it. There's this healing, and it's a shamanic kind of healing that happens when we allow these processes through. And the word shamanic is charged, and it has all sorts of cultural roots and so on and so forth. But it comes up for me because what shamanic traditions share, as I've seen them, is this recognition that the body is a magical living system. It's the magic we see when a child's born or when someone passes. This piece of like, oh my gosh, we're just here for this. And that we're not in control of that. We get to witness it. So whether I'm moving or watching, I'm really a witness. I'm witness to the inner world, and I'm witness to the outer world. And when we share that, we get to do it in a certain format here online. And of course, when we do it in person, there's even another level. And there's a lot, but then the advantage of being in person is we don't step on each other's boundaries. It's really easy to hold our sovereignty online. I think that's the function. Why are we being called in culture right now to live online? Why have we made that choice? I would say it's to practice our sovereignty, perhaps. That maybe that's what we're called to, is this learning of our sovereignty that happens by being online. It's very hard for any of us to hurt each other here. And ironically, very easy because it gets so polarized with the online world. It's easy to make a comment that hurts someone, but it only goes so far. I want to, let's see, where are we on time? I want to open up to some questions. If there's anything else coming up, questions or comments. I'm seeing so much go through the chat bubble, and I'm kind of ignoring it because I'm overwhelmed by it. So I'm hoping that maybe the most important things would come up here by speaking them.
Sylvan, before you go, your face made me so happy. Laying on the ground on a pillow, and thank you so much. You made me smile.
If anyone else is interested in other online dance communities that are doing a really good job of finding ways to connect over this very strange medium, that's sort of disconnected. I'm plugged into a whole lot of different dance groups that are doing events at various times and various places and various time zones. And one of the lovely things about them is that we can dance with people from all over the world. We don't have to be in physical space together, which is a really opportunity. So if anybody wants to contact me and come dance with people from all over the world, it's really lovely. It's really fun. Anytime.
I want to add to that, if you're looking for real world places to dance, I'm offering that. I haven't been doing much online. It's not quite my space, I've learned, other than the occasional thing like this. But I have a real physical space here, and I'm in Boise, Idaho, and I'm throwing a retreat here in a couple weeks in October. I still have a few spots available. It's a pod retreat. You have to be willing to take the risk of COVID to show up. It will not be masked. It will not be socially distanced. It'll be 15 people. But you can find me on my website at Soma, SOMA.works, WORKS. And you can join my email list there. You can email me, probably my phone number's there. You're welcome to call me or text me too. And the retreat's up there on my events calendar. If you go forward to October, you'll see it. There's still a couple spots. I'll be throwing those fairly regularly. This space is just coming into being. And this is sort of my purpose. Anything? Oh, the website again. I guess I should throw it in the chat. It's Soma. So Soma is like the holistic body, and the root of somatics. So the body is experienced, or the whole body. Whoops, that's not right. Soma.works. There's no .com. It's soma.works. Like my Soma works. And so you can find me there, Matthew Nelson. So if there's no more comments, then I would like to do one more little movement session, get some music going for a few minutes and get to sort of just drop in and out of that again, take another cycle, and to take what we've heard into that. But I'm wondering, I have the sense there's a little more to be said based on at least what popped through my chat window.
I was hoping to ask Sylvan again, because I missed it, because I was taking some notes, but Sylvan, what was the opportunity online that you mentioned?
Trying to figure out how to unmute this thing. Contact me in the Slack channel, or I don't know if they're putting out a attendee contact list, but contact me outside of this. There's a whole bunch of different events that I attend, depending on days and times and places that you're interested. So just get a hold of me. I would love to dance with you, Marla.
Okay, thank you.
While you two were talking about that, I looked at the comments and I saw something so potent. Christy, thanks for speaking to this. I want to dance, but I find dance to be dangerous. I lose control. I'm not allowed to lose control. There's a potency there about, yeah, who's in control? and how do we handle this border between me, who I know who it, I know who I am, how and this, like, anything could happen. And so I want to come back to the floor, and you don't need to do this. You can watch me if you like, because there is a logic to it that I want to show, or you can do it, either one. So you can take this as an invocation, as a journey for yourself, or you can take it more from the observer place. And I want to speak a little bit more about the power of the ground. Some music there playing, did that work? Yeah, music going. So the ground is a form of medicine. And to me, it's the simplest medicine I know. As a movement therapist, body worker, somatic therapist, to me, it's the most essential thing I do, which is to get down here. And I suppose moving beyond my role as therapist, it's a professional role. It is my deepest medicine that I receive, because I'm not in control of this body. It'll do all sorts of things. It will experience great pain and tension. Sometimes I'll be just lying somewhere and I'll start vibrating, or like a sudden movement will come up. Kriya, if from the perspective of Tantra. So every movement has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Every movement, every breath. There's phrasing in everything. Beginning, middle, end. Beginning, middle, end. And so in each phrase is a pulse of the life force. Just like each sentence is a pulse of expression. And so with each shift is a new opportunity to find out who is here, who is making the call. And I don't know where I'm going to go much of the time. I start a movement, but I don't necessarily know when the end of the phrase will come. So I become that observer, right? That participant. And I'm a trained mover. I've got, lots of ideas about how that happens, but it's still a mystery much of the time. And so when there's pain, when there's fear, when I don't know what to do, the earth gives me feedback, right? Use and accept feedback. I don't remember the exact wording of the principle, the permaculture principle, but there's feedback here. It feels like something. It gives me an idea where my edges are. And then I don't have to be the one in control. I can trust. And it's really hard to get hurt down here, like physically injured on the floor. It's just not going to happen, short of a tree falling on you. So our heads that we carry around, right, that our bodies are vehicles for moving around so much of the time, we take really good care of them. And we know not to pass out and fall and crack our heads open. It's just not worthwhile to go that way. So we don't let it happen. When we get down on the ground, we can let it happen, because there's nowhere to fall to. So there's a letting go. The nervous system knows that. The being knows that. The body knows that. So the ground's a really good place to fall apart, to not be in control, not need to be in control. It's really hard to get hurt down there. So it's fundamental. Movements have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Every movement. and they stack, right? The beginning of this movement becomes, ends, and that begins this movement, just like this breath comes in and becomes the next breath. So there's a flow. We're mostly water. There's a flow. And so being on the ground, there's the flow from one motion into the next. There may be a pause, and that pause may go on for quite a while. And in there is the opportunity to feel, to soften, to yield. Into whatever it is that's being given. And then the pain becomes, the discomfort becomes, the ecstasy becomes something that is just learned from physically. Not up here. We may get a message up here, but the learning is direct. It's like with body work. With body work, the learning is direct. When I hold someone in my hands, there's a back and forth. When I hold myself in my hands, there's a back and forth, and it's direct. It doesn't need to go through here. That's my little lecture. Is there, I think it's about time to go. We have, yeah, we're like right on time. But are there any other things that want to be said or moved before we go?
Thank you, Matthew. We appreciate you very much. You're a part of us.
I do write about all this stuff, so please do join my blog at soma.works. It's a way to stay in touch. It's so funny to drop into these virtual worlds and then be like out, and it's like, wait, what was that? Who was that? I'm super grateful to join you. I hope next week to do so in person. Please come visit me if you can. Love to move with people.
Yes, thank you so much for the space to move and to connect and to remember who we are.
Oh, add my voice to yours. Okay. Well.
And Matthew, the thing we're liking to make available for all of our presenters is their options if we want to support them financially for the time they're sharing with us. And that's at Matthew Nelson-180. That's for Venmo, and for PayPal, it's vwnelson@gmail.com. So if you feel like supporting Matthew for his time here, that's a nice way to do it, or to sign up for a class, or just visit sometime, or recommend his classes to people. And we're just so grateful for you making this time with us. To put it in the chat, yeah, I'll copy it from the schedule. It's also on the schedule for all of our presenters. We put that, here's how we can give them, I call it a love offering for the time they have. And then coming up next in our schedule, as I type that, is Food Justice and Permaculture with Terry Campton, speaking to a case study of Western Washington University and Outback Farm. And I believe David Stein's going to be our host during that time. Then we have a dinner conversation, and our keynote is Teju Adicia Ferrar. And there's more information on the schedule to look up. Our presenters' websites are on there, like Matthew's, SomaWorks, soma.works. And yeah, thanks. David Stein, I'll make sure that you're host. And let me stop this recording session. So I will